welcome to another of the BC Gallery live watch parties. My name is Nina Camplin, and this month we're looking at Welsh Myths and Legends, and today in particular we're looking at a local medium to Pembrokeshire called Sarah Bevan, and she lived over near Wolf's Castle at Trefgarn village, and she predicted in the 18th century. She saw a vision of a line of carts moving through the centre of Trefgarn Gorge at high speed, and the frontmost car was on fire, and they interpreted this as a vision of the first steam train coming to Wales. So I wanted to do a kind of interpretation of this quite loosely, and I was also at the same time looking at intuitive painting. Now intuitive painting is when you don't have an end goal in mind. So I kind of mixed the two things together because I did have an end goal in mind, but I also didn't quite know how I was going to do it. And this is by no means finished. This is just a kind of starting point. So today I thought what I'd do is I'd tell you about intuitive painting, because this would work really well with some of the work that people are doing in the creative writing workshops with James. And if you can't think of a way to interpret, say, a poem or some creative writing that you're doing, this is a really good way of just kind of freeing up your mind. And a lot of people think of this as very meditative and very therapeutic. And it can also help if you're an artist and you've got creative block to start trying to do some intuitive painting, because it just starts you to get into the process. And so what I'm going to show you today is how I started this, and you can use a similar kind of process to either tell your own story or just start painting. So I started by using, first of all, this is a recycled canvas. It had a landscape on it before, and I just put a whitewash over that. And then I decided I was going to pick up the paints out of my box that I didn't use very often, which happened to be green. I've started by just blobbing straight from the tube some green paint. This is a hooker's green, which is a colour that I never use in anything. So I also had a neon green. So I'm just literally taking it straight out of the tube and putting it onto the canvas. I went with a neon yellow as well. And then I decided also that I wasn't going to use a paintbrush. So I thought what I would do is use I found a bit of card that was just lying around on my desk. And I just scraped this to cover the background. And it starts to give a completely different finish to when you do it with a brush. And then once you start doing this, you start playing with the mark making. So you can see that, okay, you can use this to scrape it on or spread it, but you can also use it to scrape it off. You can use it to make marks like this. And it's quite an abstract. It's just nice sometimes to just let go and just play with the paint. And again, I've got a load that I've scraped off that I can actually start putting back on again. And just picking up things that you've got lying around. Like for instance, I've got a bit of kitchen roll that I've been using to wipe up. Using this and seeing what kind of marks I can make with this. So I started to realise that when I was at this point, that it started to look like foliage. I was actually using my fingers as well when I did the original, spreading it out with my fingers. Seeing what kind of marks you can make. You can scrape it back with your nails as well. And I was starting to realise that it did look like maybe a landscape. This was starting to evolve into a landscape because of the green, because of the texture. So I decided to go back to my original idea of the visionary Sarah Bevan, and I started to think about the railway lines, because of the way a steam train comes through. It's always on a railway line base, and that kind of ladder type effect of the railway lines with the sleepers in. You can still see them in here. I actually decided to start going towards a bit more realism, and I actually drew in the train. Now that train is still drawn in using the card. I still use the card for this. I kept it quite basic. I'm really scraping it back and putting it back in again. I think I used a burnt umber or a black or something for this. And at this point, mine was starting to then look like a bit of a picture. So I decided to put Sarah Bevan in here, or my interpretation of Sarah Bevan, because I couldn't find any reference to find out what she looks like. So I've put her in very basically here. So she's in here. This is her vision that she's got. And then I started to use, I had some inks that I had lying around. So these were FW inks with these pipettes that you get in the lids. And this is what I used to write the wording in. So I've actually put like Sarah Bevan, and I've been writing visionary. I put the word visionary in here, and then I decided that because she had this vision of the first steam train being on fire, that I'd put some flames in the front here. Now they haven't worked too well because this was all still wet. But the other thing you can do with the intuitive painting is you can dry it between layers, and it's quite interesting to, once you've dried it off, to then pick some complementary colours, so kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So if you're using greens, then you use reds. If you're using darks, you use lights. And you can just start going into it again. So we can put some flames in here. There we go, I can see the flames a bit better there. So this was just a kind of a little introduction to intuitive painting. So hopefully you'll join me again next week, and I'll see you again then. Bye!